there's actually a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding out there around the permit system. So, and in Australia we're really fortunate. A lot of countries don't have a permit system. So your fundamental first point is a product registered for use in that crop for that pest, etc., etc. And you've got a label that tells you what you can and can't do. And a lot of countries, that's it. So we're quite fortunate that we do have, as part of our regulatory system, the potential for emergency use permits or minor use permits. It takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending on what you're talking about, to get a registration. And that chemical companies will only do that if they see an economic return. One of the first things about minor use permits is they're only available for what are defined as minor crops, not major crops. Things like wheat, barley, sorghum, they're major crops. And you can't get a minor use permit in those crops. But many of the pulses and other oil seeds are minor crops, so a minor use permit is an option. That permit is legally binding in the same way as a label. It becomes an annex to the label, is maybe one way of looking at it. So under a permit, you still have to follow all the requirements that are stipulated on the label. So that might be things about buffer zones and storage and handling and etc. Obviously, the use pattern isn't on the label. That's why we've got a permit. But the permit tells you what crop, what rate, what withholding periods, all those same requirements that we have on our label. So yeah, it is a legally binding document. And like obviously these permits have a lifespan, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And at times we get caught with the fact that the permit's expired and growers may still want to use that product. Maybe it's a product that they've purchased the previous season and it's carried over. And look, the legality of it is if the permit's not in place, if it's expired, then legally you cannot use that product. And I've stood there with growers and they've sort of said, well, really, that's a bit rough. I used it last year, what's changed? Well, actually things may have changed. And that may be that we now know that product, that active ingredient, is no longer acceptable in a major marketplace. Because other countries are continuously reviewing, updating and changing MRLs. So whereas that may have been fine last year, now it's not fine for that marketplace. So in actual fact, yeah, we can no longer use it because we are going to give ourselves problems in the marketplace. So the fact that the permit's expired and is no longer available often is for a very good reason. So the second permit option is what's called an emergency use option. And that word emergency really describes it. It's when the sky's falling, when something's gone horrendously wrong. It could be an incursion of a new pest or problem. So emergency use permits are issued specifically for that season and for that issue. And they may only be issued for a matter of weeks, depending on what's going on, but certainly only for that year, for that season. Whereas minor use permits are more of a long-term thing. It's something we're going to see year after year. It's a need that we have year after year. So they can be issued for anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on what's going on. The other really important thing to have in the back of your mind with these things though, they're not a free pass. You have to have suitable data to support that application, including residues, as well as efficacy and crop safety. So yeah, just because I want that permit doesn't mean I'm going to get it. We have to be able to put in sufficient data to satisfy the APVMA, the regulator, that this is a safe and appropriate use of that pesticide, particularly around MRLs and again trade.